why does prioritization matter? So it helps you obviously be more efficient, get things done in less time, frees up more time. And it really helps with our mental health because it prevents that overwhelm. And for me, it just makes me feel more in control. Welcome to the O for Food's Sake podcast, where we unwrap the joys and struggles of working in the food industry so you can thrive in what you do best while sustaining a rewarding and fulfilling career or business. We are your hosts, Lucy Wager, food industry consultant,
and Amy Wilkinson, food industry coach. We've worked in the food industry for the last 20 years and we're here to share with you the benefit of our hindsight. Our podcast is for you to find new ways to cope with the daily struggles, but mostly to inspire you to work on what's not working to ultimately improve your career or business long term.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of O for Food's Sake. Today we're talking about prioritization, and I wanted to do this episode because I've had to really use all my prioritizing powers in the last few weeks because I was so poorly all through December, and I lost my voice for 3 full weeks on top of just really not being very well.
It was horrible, wasn't it?
It was awful. And I sort of ended last year, so ended 2024, sort of needing to really prioritize because without a voice for 3 weeks, I wasn't able to do quite a lot of stuff, including podcasting. But I tried my best to do as much as I could work-wise and family-wise and Christmas. I mean, it's like work. But obviously came into January and desperately needed to make sure I was spending the precious energy I had, because my energy resources were still not great, in the best possible ways. I am not naturally a good prioritizer. I do like a bazillion things at once, which is why I broke myself at the end.
Yeah.
So it's taught me a really valuable lesson. And while I was thinking about sort of the fact that I needed to prioritize and sort of constantly thinking, right, what is the most important thing to get done at the moment? I think I saw it on a reel somewhere or something. I don't know where I saw it, but it was this quote that said, you can tell what's important to you by the decisions you make. And it really hit me.
Yeah.
Because it made me feel, well, how does it make you feel, Amy?
Well, it resonates with me in that I'm just thinking about another conversation I've had in another team thing that I was doing around, we all have the same amount of time, and sometimes we say we haven't got time, but actually the reality is we are choosing what we prioritize. I was listening to something that they were talking about, when, like, say if your kid comes in the room and says they want you to play with whatever, and you say, I haven't got time to do that. Obviously, we all do that all the time, don't you? You're looking like mum guilt,
God,
but you're not the only one that does that. We all do that. But if the same kid came running in the room with blood coming out of their finger or had burnt themselves or something, you're not going to say, I haven't got time to do it. So it's actually what is the level of urgency or importance you place on it, isn't it? So that's what it brings up for me, is like, actually, if you are deciding to do X, Y, and Z, then like that is saying that thing is more important than that thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, so the ability to prioritize has got much more complicated for me as I've got older.
Yeah.
Because when I was young, my priorities were basically all centered around me. And, I wanted to do well at work. So I'd just work really hard, and, then having fun was important. So I'd go out and, it's just very easy.
Life's a lot simpler, isn't it?
Yeah. And I was very lucky because there was, nothing dramatic happening with illnesses outside or whatever. But as I've got older and I've had children and I've continued to work and sort of develop my consultancy business and have a passion for what I do with work, but have a husband that wants my attention some of the time and children that want and need my attention some of the time, it's really, really difficult to prioritize. And I wanted to just spend a little bit of time on the basis of prioritization and how your sort of long-term goals can help. Because I think for me, when I've sort of found myself in this like coming out of being ill and needing to prioritize everything, having those long-term goals in my mind have been really important, because it would have been very easy to just drop everything else, obviously like look after my children, but forget about myself again and work myself into illness again.
Yeah. So by your long-term goals, it's almost like that coming back to your why you're doing what you do.
It's your foundations.
Yeah.
So, absolutely.
What matters to you.
Yeah. So, obviously my family are the most important thing, and my health. I should have said my health first, because being so ill at Christmas time made me realize that if I make myself, I'm blaming myself, making myself ill, but you know what I mean? If I'm ill, I can't be there and do the stuff that I want to do with my family.
It's the old oxygen mask analogy, isn't it? You have to look after yourself first.
Yes. So having those foundations of what's really important is really valuable, because the day to day is actually, when we think about prioritizing, I'm really talking about how we all feel when we've got these like pressing things that we need to get done.
When there's a million things and you're already working stupid hours. People, one more thing is going to tip you over the edge, that sort of level of prioritized.
Exactly. Yeah. But having those like set foundations can just really, really help you. And I think it can get quite confusing, to be honest, about what is the most important thing. And it's called to kind of like living intentionally. Yeah. But you can't do that until you really realign what those intentions are and what you want from your life and why doing it. And I honestly think, because we're all so under so much pressure all the time, we sometimes don't have time to think about.
No, we just get on autopilot, don't we? We just keep going and going, and you're like, actually, why am I doing what I'm doing?
And it becomes the norm. And
and this is where I do stuff like I go back and look at my values every 6 months. Am I living in life in line with my values? Are my values still the same? Are you going to laugh at me now, Lucy? I'm totally 2025 embracing the woo side of me and the spiritual side of me. So it was a full moon last night. So I set my intentions, and I did what I'm letting go of on a piece of paper, and then ripped it all up. I was going to set fire to it, but I was like, I'm way too clumsy. It's gonna burn.
Going to be a serious house fire in Stamford.
And did these are what my intentions are, and there's only like 4 big ones for this year, and I'm going to stick it on the wall, and it's going to be exactly what you're saying, my guiding light. If I need to make a decision, is it going to move me towards that quicker? If it's not, then it's not as much of a priority. Yeah. It's easier said than done when you've got a million, like I'm just thinking about people listening, you're in a corporate job and, there's a million deadlines going on. It isn't always just about what you need as an individual, is it?
No, but it's getting the balance. Yeah. So it's having that awareness allows you to consciously make decisions. So you might, for example, I made a real boo-boo the other day because my daughter came home from school. So let me just say a couple of things. So let me just give you some examples about about this. So if your goal is to build strong family connections, you might prioritize times with your loved ones over work commitments, right? Yeah. That's a really easy thing to say. Mm-hmm. You're not going to be able to do that every single time. If you want to maintain good health, which I do, you might set aside time for exercise and meal prep. Now, ironically, before I got really ill, I'd identified that I really needed to do this, and I just haven't been doing any exercise. So I've found a PT, blocked out in my diary on a Monday morning, straight from drop off, a PT session, which I've now not been able to do, but it's still in the diary and it's going to happen once I'm feeling much stronger.
When you're not ill. Yeah.
And I chose that time because I knew that's the least likely time that I would drop out of my diary, because it's on a Monday straight after drop off. So it's before anybody can catch me. Yeah. But you can't always do the things that you commit to. And I had a really good example. So obviously, spending time and making sure my children think I'm present is a really big priority for me. But driving my consultancy business forward and developing good relationships with my clients and creating a pipeline of work for 2025 and 2026 is also a high priority for me, for us to be able to live the life that we want to live.
Yeah.
And
Because
do the things that we want to do.
It's still is part of that family life, right?
Exactly. And so sometimes those two priorities can be competing. And a really good example the other day, Bella came home really excited because they're doing a school class assembly. And so she told me when it was. I looked in my diary and I was like, yes, I can do that morning. I'm free in that morning. So I put it in my diary. Yes, I'm going to be there. But I hadn't properly looked at my diary and realised that the meeting that was later that day, which is a full meeting, is in London. I'm not going to be there because I'm going to be travelling to London. She cried when I told her. It was awful. But I can't cancel that meeting. I've already committed. I made a mistake, and I've explained that to my daughter.
Yeah.
But they are two heavily competing priorities. Yeah. And I just hope that my daughter will one day grow up and think she's proud of me.
Yeah, I think that's a really good example of where it's really, really hard. And there might be people listening that have judge you for not saying, well, I'm going to cancel the meeting. But this is the thing. This is where you have to just let those people do that. And actually, you have to do what is right for you. Because, there will be other, and schools are flipping annoying for not giving you enough notice of things. And just sort of seeming to assume that we can all just take time off in a working day to do everything.
Yeah.
It's so old school, isn't it? It's like we're all at home, like on our yoga mats, waiting to go and do whatever with the kids. But it's, there will be another time where you will make the other decision.
Well, that's the thing. Another example, same child, she needs to go to the doctors. And there's a meeting in, I'm not going to go to the meeting. I'm going to take her to the doctors because they're my priorities. Yeah. And so I'm really clear about that. And there would be certain meetings that might be able to move, but I know what I need to deliver for my clients, and I'm committed. Part of who I am, I'm very passionate about what I do. I love working for the people that I work with. And my children know that. They see me working, and they tell their friends what I do, and their teachers all know what I do. So I know that they're proud of you. They're proud of that, which is great. And I've made sure that my husband can definitely go to that because he never go. I mean, the thing is, he does go to some things, but I'd just like to say I go to about 99%.
Well, yeah, there is that.
And he the expectation is just different because it's always been that way. I know. And that's just the thing, isn't it?
Well, I don't think it's just in your marriage. I think it's societal expectations.
Yeah.
To a degree.
And I did feel better that another mum, because she was like, everybody else's mum's going to be there. Well, no, they're not. I suddenly discovered. So that's good. But anyway, so having those overarching, clear, life guiding goals, and you don't need to do it like Amy. You can just have a little think about what's driving you.
Yeah.
Is great because it gives you that foundation. And I think it helps in those times where you've got that conflict. You can justify why you're choosing one over the other and not have this internal battle with yourself. But the prioritizations that I struggle with most are the day-to-day, things that come in unexpectedly, just the massive to-do list that we all have. Yeah. It feels never-ending. It's one of the joys of working in the food industry. There's always something happening. There's always a crisis. There's, there's just always something else.
And there's an element of us that we thrive on it, right? Because I just think you just wouldn't work in the industry if you didn't.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But I think I don't know whether it's just we all just keep saying, but things do seem to be getting sort of worse in the sense that we're busier and everything seems more stressful. So I wanted to talk about some of the things that I have found useful in prioritizing above and beyond that kind of instinctive, because I think a lot of the time when I'm not in a sort of overwhelmed state that I was in when I'd been ill, because I'd been thinking, oh my God, I'm so ill, I'm so busy, and I've got to prioritize and that kind of thing. I rely quite a lot on instinct of what feels most important, which does work for me a lot of the time. But it's good to have some other,
almost a bit more science behind it. Yeah. Because the risk is, if you just go on instinct, there's going to be some bias in there that's going to be because I like that person more, or because
you like
that task
you
more.
Like doing the task more.
And that's the thing, we can be so, I see this a lot with clients, and I do it myself, where it's sometimes we just want to tick things off the list, so we do all the easy stuff, but actually it's not the important stuff.
Yeah.
That you say you almost need something to override that bias.
Yeah. And I think a tool that we've used before, we've talked about before, is the urgent versus important matrix. It's a matrix where you have, you're better at explaining matrices.
So you have the level of urgency and the level of importance of the task.
So then you place the tasks. So is it urgent and important?
If it is, you've got to do it now.
Yeah. Is it important but not urgent?
Yeah. So you need to schedule to do that. They're the sorts of, so important but not urgent are often things like personal development, things that are going to grow your business, things that really do matter, but always end up at the bottom of the list because of the urgent stuff takes over. So you need to schedule the time to do your important stuff.
Yeah. And then urgent but not important.
So can you get somebody else to do that?
And neither urgent nor important.
Don't do it. It needs to go off the bottom of the list.
So that's really useful in assessing when you're feeling really overwhelmed. And the other thing is time blocking. Now, I used to be a major non-advocate of time blocking.
I love that you like it now.
And now,
I mean, there is part of me that's like, why did you not listen to me 3 years ago, 4 years ago? But yeah, I love that you love it.
Yeah, I've had to go on a long journey to get to time blocking.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick breather here to hear from our fantastic sponsors. They help keep the podcast going, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Ensuring food safety and quality is crucial. That's why businesses trust Microsearch Laboratories, part of the IFP Labs Group. UCAS-accredited Microsearch offers microbiological, nutritional and allergen testing for food, drink and water, delivering fast results and expert support. With over 30 years of experience, trusted by leading manufacturers and retailers, and a commitment to sustainability, Microsearch is your partner in product safety. Visit micro-search.co.uk to learn more.
And we're back. Thanks for sticking with us. Let's dive right back in. So explain what you mean by time blocking.
So I was just about to say, I probably don't do it properly. And I think that is what has always been the barrier to me for time blocking.
There's no right or wrong. How does it work for you?
Yeah. So I basically put in my diary chunks of time. So previously, I would only put in like meetings that I had. But what I do now is I put in chunks of time for tasks, or even I've even gone this far, even when I don't even know what that specific task is going to be, I dedicate to a specific client or a specific thing that I need to do.
Yeah.
So I know that I'm not overloading my diary. And this comes down to comes down to that bigger life goal of needing to prioritize myself a bit more. Mm-hmm. So I realized that I needed to have a visual, because I'm very visual. I needed something visual to look at to understand my time, because I have slight time blindness.
For listening, it's a trait of ADHD to have time blindness. So I saw something, because I just think it's useful to know in this whole prioritization thing, like we can be quite rubbish at everybody, whether you're neurodivergent or not, we generally underestimate the amount of time something's going to take to do. But I saw a reel last night that was about basically like somebody was now timing how long things took, and it takes 10 minutes to get out of the door, because I always just think, well, I'm leaving and I'm leaving now. But actually, grab a coffee, put your coat on, find your keys, and it's 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And all of those 10 minutes like add up throughout the day, but we don't account for them. So actually being aware of that time blindness can be helpful. But anyway, sorry.
Yeah. And so having that time blocking allows you to kind of have that visual look of time.
Yeah.
And I was you've already mentioned that we all have the same 24 hours in the day. It's how we choose to spend those 24 hours, and time blocking. And the thing is, there are 24 hours in the day, and we're talking about work here. You're not working for 24 hours of those of that day. And you've got to be realistic about what you can do in the time that you've got to work and live your life.
Yeah. And also need to recognize that you're not always going to be working at 100% capacity all the time, as in we don't all have the same energy all day, every day. And that's where that sort of balance and the health element comes into it as well. Because some days I wake up and I'm like, oh, I am not firing on all cylinders. So you sort of have to put a bit of buffer in for that as well, don't you? And for the stuff that's going to fly in that you don't know is going to happen, the plot twists that happen every day.
And I mean, we've changed the way we plan and record the podcast because we realised that we're really good at recording in the morning.
Yeah.
But we sort of flag if it's in the afternoon. So we've sort of changed the way we do things.
But we've also blocked out more time for planning than we had. We used to do it a different way.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you think about that in the context of everything we've talked about, that's because we've come back to our why we're doing what we're doing, what we want to achieve with the podcast. Therefore, we knew that we needed to change the way we're doing it. And, so we've split out our time differently, but making sure that time is in, and we don't necessarily have to use it for absolutely everything to do with that, but the buffer time is in there for us to get the work done. And I'm getting a lot better at that now with projects, actually, putting in looking at when, I've got to deliver something and putting time blocks in my diary of when I'm going to do the work, because otherwise it just gets filled with meetings.
Yeah. And actually, sorry to go on keep talking about ADHD, but somebody sent me this speech by that really brilliant doctor who talks loads about ADHD. He was talking about time blindness. He said for somebody with ADHD, they know that there's something really important, but they just can't do anything about it until it's there. And I was like, that is so true. Until you train, for me, I've trained myself and have strategies in place to make sure that things, that doesn't happen.
And I think anybody that's listening that identifies with that, I work well under pressure, or I always get things done at the last minute, knowing that sometimes that means that you're not doing the best job you could do, or yes, you do always pull it out of the bag, but you would like to have lower stress levels. Actually, that's what we're talking about, is actually being more aware of that and then putting that time in, whether you've got, neurodivergence or not. We all have elements of these traits in us, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And then I wanted to talk about procrastination, because I think this ties in with prioritization, because there's often tasks within things that I need to do that I procrastinate on, and I don't really know why. Because then once I tackle it, it all becomes, it's like, why didn't I do this earlier? Because that would have made my life easier. And this idea came from a book called Uptime. I think it came from Uptime.
Yes.
By Laura, what's her name?
Laura May Martin.
Yeah, Laura May Martin. So it's quite a new book on that theory of we all have 24 hours, but choosing the way we spend it is the most important thing. And I really liked this idea of kind of thinking about procrastination, and instead of kind of ignoring it and thinking, oh, I don't want to do that yet, thinking, why don't I? And kind of challenging yourself as to trying to identify the root cause of why you don't want to tackle it in that minute. Because then you can try to identify strategies to start tackling it earlier than you would, based on what is making you not want to do it.
Yeah.
So breaking it into smaller tasks, that's called the Swiss cheese method, where you take if it feels too big, just start anywhere and pick holes in it to break it down.
Yeah, that really resonates with me. And because one of the things I'll do is just write on my to-do list, and it's like prepare, that course. And it's like there's so many.
Yeah.
So
what
now,
does that mean?
Yeah, exactly. So now on ClickUp, because Lucy converted me to ClickUp, and I don't think she uses it anymore, but I use it to manage all my. You can have a main task and then subtasks. So I've started to put subtasks in because that feels more manageable, and it'll send me a reminder that, because I used to put a reminder in that, this whole thing needs doing. And I think, I can't be bothered to do that. Now it only sends me the reminder of the subtask. I'm like, I can get that done today.
Yeah. And that's a really good point, because when it sends you that big thing, that big overarching, you've got to think about what you need to do. So it's not actually just one task. It's like a much bigger task.
Yeah. Yeah. There's really something in that, like breaking it down into much smaller pieces like that.
And setting deadlines, and this resonates for me for time blocking, because just put some time in your diary that's dedicated to that. Even if you don't know what it is that you're going to do, that could be when you break that task down. So you think about how you're going to break it down and reward yourself.
And setting a deadline, because I have things like that are on my to-do list, which are, say, like business development things, like I need to contact somebody that, you know, I haven't spoken to for 3 months or whatever, you know, that's an important part of my business. That can just stay on the list forever if it's not got a deadline on it.
Yeah.
And actually, I've now, you know, my sister's helping me out in the business and doing a bit of like PA stuff with me. She's really good at that, you know, making sure that stuff happens. And she will see, she goes in my ClickUp and she'll see when I've like closed a task and I haven't really done it, and she'll put it back in and put the date back on. And she's like, just because you like, say if I've chased somebody over something and they've not come back to me, I'll be like, oh, I've done that because I want to tick it off. And she's like, no, you need to put 2 weeks time, you're going to chase them again. Oh, but I want it off the list, you know, like actually having that account. But it's right. She's right.
Yeah.
I need that. And I've identified I need that. And it helps me not procrastinate and do stuff to have somebody else helping me.
And actually, that's a good segue into something that I wanted to say is I've also found it really useful. It's also a VA, but it doesn't have to be a VA. Obviously, we work in our own businesses and I sort of work on my own. So, but it could be a colleague that you like buddy up with and you just talk through what's on your to-do list when you're feeling overwhelmed. Because I did this yesterday. Every week I have a meeting with my VA and sometimes I skip it because I'm too busy. And I was like, because I hadn't seen her for ages, I have to do this. I was like, but I don't even know what I want to talk to you about. I'm just going to talk to you. And I just started talking to her. And by going through everything that was on my list, and some of the stuff was stuff that's been on there for ages that wasn't urgent, but was important. And I was able to kind of delegate some of that to her. So just talking it through can sometimes be really helpful.
I'm smiling because I had a similar call with my VA yesterday, and there's something on the list. It's a course thing that I've been talking about doing for ages. And she just basically set me a deadline and she was like, you'll get me the slides by that date and then we're going to launch it on that day. I was like, okay. But sometimes that's what you need, isn't it?
Yeah,
particularly if it's something you're procrastinating over. So like almost like that accountability of somebody else is really, really helpful as well.
Absolutely.
But I also think on procrastination, another good one is I love a bit of Mel Robbins. If you haven't listened to Mel Robbins' podcast, you have to. Like, it's brilliant. But she has the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 rule. That's like, she's written a whole book on it. But basically, when you really don't want to do something, you just count down from 5 and do it. Like, it's sometimes I don't know the science behind it or whatever, but it does actually work. And sometimes we just have to push through, don't we, on the things that we really don't want to do.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And I think taking that time to think, why don't I want to do this? You might not be able to identify it and then just like, just got to fucking do it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Another insight that I got from that Uptime book was understanding the benefits of intentional pauses to reinvigorate yourself, basically, and the importance of rest and how that stimulates ideas and gives your brain a chance to do what you need it to do. And I know that's really difficult, but I've been doing this because I don't want to get ill again.
Yeah.
I've been resting much more than I normally do. I mean, I'm really pleased with how productive I've been.
I think it does make you more productive.
Yeah.
Like this is the thing. We all know, like, you've just got to get up. Sometimes you just have to get up and make a cup of tea, or just go and, like, it's not the right time of year, but as it starts to get warmer, just go and stand in the garden, or, you know, like go for a walk around the block. All of those things just give you a headspace, don't they? And actually you then end up being more productive afterwards and help you with the prioritization, because you're getting your mind out of this like high stress, got to get everything done. It just gives you more perspective, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've talked about tips all the way through, but other things that I think help me with prioritization are getting things. I've bought myself a whiteboard because it's here because my husband hasn't put it up yet, but he's promised me he's going to put it up on Thursday. Just getting things like visually out on a board, because I use a lot of, I use my computer to make lists. I use monday.com. That's all great. And I use online whiteboards. But sometimes I think in those moments of overwhelm, nothing like getting it out, onto a piece of paper. We've talked about large pieces of paper, the Claire Martino
Yeah, the
A3
16 sections on a piece of paper. Yeah,
folding the page so you've got 16 boxes within a page, and kind of just getting everything out onto that. They can also be really, really useful.
Yeah. And actually, sometimes it's, you can use the 16 box. Sometimes it's literally just like a big long list. Do you know what? There's tools as well. Like I've got much better at, like I actually, you're going to laugh at this. When we came back from the Christmas break, like I use ChatGPT a lot for brainstorming and stuff because, as a solo business owner, sometimes there's nobody to like bounce off. And it's quite good at bouncing stuff off. So I'd done a lot of that at the back end of last year. And when I came back in January, I was like, based on all the conversations we've had over the last 3 months, what things should I be prioritizing in my business? And it was really good.
Oh, wow.
Coming back and going, well, you've been talking about this, you've been talking about that, and you've been saying this is really important. I don't know. But also you can do a mind dump on a piece of paper and then get ChatGPT to just transcribe it and help you, use the right prompts to help you prioritize it. So, there are tools out there that can really, really help.
That's a really, really good idea. And why does prioritization matter? So it helps you obviously be more efficient, get things done in less time, frees up more time. And it really helps with our mental health because it prevents that overwhelm. And for me, it just makes me feel more in control.
Yeah.
And it reduces my stress levels. And for example, where I'd made that stupid error with my diary and had told Bella that I could go to her assembly and then realized I couldn't, because I knew why I'd made, why the priorities had to be the way they were. It was horrible, but it was a less stressful situation.
Yeah. Yeah. Because
I was
you
clear.
Thought through. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's like actually sometimes it can feel like prioritization is all about trying to be the most efficient and productive and all of that, but it isn't. It's more about doing the right thing and like living that, like you said,
why.
The why, and living life intentionally and not just being on autopilot all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I would just say, think about what your priorities are and what's driving you to help you with that decision making. And hopefully you've taken something from this and can use some of the tools that we've shared. Because I feel really, although it was awful being ill, it's kind of driven me to think more about how to prioritize, which has been useful.
Yeah. No, it really resonates with me, Lucy, because of all that, all of the illness that I got out of burnout. Like it's almost like the gift of these horrible things that happen to us. It gives you the perspective and it makes you realise what's important. And then there's these great tools that can help us prioritise what's important to us. So exactly. I think it will resonate with lots of people listening as well.
Lovely. Great. Well, let us know and we will see you next time.
See you next time.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it, rate and review us. It really helps us reach more food industry pros like you.
For more resources, head over to our website, overfoodsake.co.uk, and join our mailing list to stay in touch.
And if you'd like to connect with us, come say hello on LinkedIn. We're both there, Lucy Wager and Amy Wilkinson.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.